Dr. Keithar's nerve clusters recoiled as the neural probe registered impossible readings. Elena Vasquez, human emergency medic, maintained consciousness while her cortex processed pain levels that should have triggered immediate neural shutdown. The instruments wailed. His translator crackled with error codes. 847 units on the pain index. 12 units sent Keithar's people into merciful darkness. 847 should have liquefied her neural pathways, yet the human spoke. "Your probe needs recalibration, Doc." Keithar's breathing slits fluttered. Elena's biosignature blazed across his monitors, pain signals flooding her consciousness without dampening, without mercy. She remained alert, conversational, even amused. "Impossible," he whispered. "Your nervous system should have collapsed." Elena's lips curved upward, that disturbing human expression. "Where I come from, broken ribs are Tuesday. Compound fractures are Wednesday. This?" She gestured at the glowing probe embedded in her temple. "This is barely Thursday." Keithar's medical textbooks mentioned no species that chose to feel pain. His understanding of biological hierarchy crumbled as Elena Vasquez smiled through agony. Dr. Keithar returned to his pristine laboratory aboard the Zaphirian medical vessel Serenity's Edge. Neural dampeners automatically adjusting his emotional equilibrium to perfect zero. He remembered his first modification ceremony, age 7 cycles, the moment his pain receptors went silent forever. His grandmother's final words, "Now you'll be civilized, little one." Pure logic, perfect peace, until Elena made him wonder what they'd lost. His research documented 2,847 civilizations across the galaxy, each following the inevitable progression. Technological advancement led to pain elimination, which led to true intelligence. Universal law. The human specimen violated every established principle. Her species' refusal to evolve beyond suffering marked them as fundamentally defective. Yet Keithar's appendages fluttered with something his dampeners should have blocked: curiosity. Humans not only tolerated pain, they weaponized it. Emergency medics like Elena deliberately exposed themselves to trauma that would render any civilized being catatonic. A species that chose agony over peace. The Galactic Medical Council would demand immediate quarantine protocols. Yet something about Elena's steady gaze during the examination disturbed his perfectly regulated thoughts. What if universal law was wrong? Station Nexus hemorrhaged atmosphere through 17 hull breaches. Dr. Keithar's sensors detected the cascade failure before lesser species registered danger. Toxic Vraxian methane mixing with helion plasma radiation at pressures that would liquefy carbon-based life. Elena Vasquez sprinted toward the breach zones. Metal deck plates burned through her boots. Toxic air seared her lungs with each breath. "Mija, pain means you're still alive," her mother's voice echoed. "Impossible," Keithar transmitted to medical command, watching her biosignature. "Human neural pathways should be severing. Methane burns organic tissue at molecular level." Yet Elena continued moving. Atmospheric toxicity, 94% lethal to humans. Her scanner showed cellular damage accelerating, tissue literally dissolving. Heart rate, steady at 78 BPM, professional calm while dying. 4 Helian younglings trapped behind the radiation barrier. Time to death, 3.7 minutes. Standard protocol, seal the section, minimize casualties. Elena began dismantling her environmental suit's radiation shielding. "She's removing protection," Keithar observed, mandibles clicking involuntarily. "This violates every survival instinct cataloged." Elena transferred her suit's life support to the youngling's emergency beacon. She had perhaps 90 seconds before organ failure. She smiled and activated the beacon anyway. Dr. Keithar extended the neural dampening rod toward Elena Vasquez, its crystalline tip humming with mercy frequencies. "Please," his translator rendered the word with unexpected softness. "Let me help you. 17 species have thanked me for ending their suffering." Elena's eyes hardened. "And how many have thanked you for teaching them to live with it?" She stepped backward, hands raised. "No, I need to feel everything." Keithar's secondary heart stuttered. His species had evolved beyond pain 3 millennia ago. Agony served no biological purpose. Yet this human insisted on maintaining full sensory input while treating the wounded across Station Nexus's emergency bay. "Your pain receptors will overload," Keithar warned, watching her vitals spike to levels that should trigger unconsciousness. Humans registered 8.7 on the Galactic Pain Index. Zaphirians maxed at 2.1. "Pain tells me what's wrong." Elena knelt beside a Vraxian victim whose acidic blood was dissolving the deck plating. She plunged her bare hands into the caustic pool, flesh smoking, neural pathways screaming, still conscious, still working, still saving lives. Keithar lowered the dampening rod. He was witnessing an impossibility, a species that weaponized their own suffering for others' salvation. Elena Vasquez pressed the vibroscalpel against her own abdomen, her hand trembling for just a moment. "Just like Dad taught me," she thought. Dr. Keithar's appendages trembled in response, witnessing something impossible. "Fascinating specimen," Elena muttered, slicing through dermis layers while her pulse remained steady at 78 beats per minute. Keithar's scanners detected 0 neural dampening compounds. This death world creature was experiencing full sensory input. Crimson human blood pooled on sterile surfaces. Elena's breathing hitched, pain response confirmed. Yet her hands never wavered. She extracted the infected appendix with surgical precision while narrating each step to the medical bay's recording systems. "Peritoneal cavity clear," she announced, suturing herself closed. Time elapsed, 14 minutes, 37 seconds. Keithar's consciousness reeled. Zaphirian doctrine claimed consciousness during trauma meant instant neural shutdown or death. Yet Elena stood, cleaned her instruments, and smiled, that impossible human expression, while internal healing accelerated beyond galactic medical norms. 16 standard hours post-surgery. Scar tissue had formed. 48 hours. Complete recovery. Elena returned to active duty, whistling, producing sound waves through controlled respiratory function, despite recent abdominal reconstruction. The universe, Keithar realized, contained biological impossibilities the Zaphirian Medical Authority had never catalogued. Something flickered in Keithar's consciousness, an aberrant neural pattern his dampeners struggled to suppress. His perfectly calibrated system hadn't experienced this in 2 centuries. Frustration. Elena Vasquez sat cross-legged on the medical bay floor, her self-sutured abdomen still weeping crimson, yet her hands moved with surgical precision as she triaged 3 dying patients simultaneously. "Primitive creature," Keithar's translator rendered his thoughts. "You will accept neural dampening. Your barbaric tolerance for agony serves no purpose." Elena's dark eyes met his compound vision. "Pain tells me what's wrong. Silence it, and people die. Inefficient, illogical. Our quantum diagnostics missed the Corvin's internal bleeding." Elena's fingers pressed against arterial points, reading pulse rhythms through touch alone. "Your scanners can't detect emotional trauma affecting circulation. But this," she tapped her chest, "feels the difference. Keithar observed her core temperature spike to 38.1 as stress hormones flooded her endocrine system. Any civilized species would collapse. Elena's productivity increased. "Doctor, what if pain isn't the enemy?" Her voice carried something his translator couldn't quite capture. "What if it's the teacher?" For the first time in 200 cycles, Keithar questioned perfection. "Don't do this," Keithar whispered. Elena Vasquez pressed her palm against the bioscanners anyway. Numbers cascaded across his displays, pain receptors firing beyond what any being should endure. She met his gaze and pressed harder. "Your species cannot comprehend this," Elena said, her voice steady, despite cortisol readings that exceeded Zaphirian death thresholds. "Pain isn't punishment, it's information." 16 species in the medical bay watched as the human deliberately increased pressure, activating more nerve endings. Keithar's throat sacs contracted in horror. "Every wound teaches us survival. Every break makes the bone stronger. Every scar becomes wisdom." Elena's biosignature blazed with impossible vitality. "You eliminated pain and created perfection. We kept pain and became anti-fragile." Keithar processed the concept through 17 probability matrices. Impossible. Yet the data confirmed it. Her cellular regeneration accelerated under stress. Cognitive function sharpened during trauma. Immune response strengthened through controlled damage. "Pain made us," Elena continued, removing her hand. "Healing factor already engaged. Without it, we're just another perfect, fragile species waiting to shatter." The Zaphirian physician stared at readings that rewrote evolutionary biology. These humans didn't just survive their death world, they thrived because of it. Dr. Keithar's neural implant screamed impossible readings. Elena Vasquez's brain scans revealed neural pathways that defied galactic medical doctrine, pain receptors connected to consciousness centers in ways that should have killed any sentient being epochs ago. "Your species possesses natural analgesic production systems," Keithar whispered, manipulator arms trembling as he studied the impossible data. "Endorphins, adrenaline. You can literally shut off pain sensation at will." Elena's smile carried something that made Keithar's respiratory slits constrict. Not anger, not superiority. Pity. The same look she'd given the dying children on Station Nexus. She pitied him for what he'd never known. "We can. Sometimes we do, in extreme emergencies." Her voice remained steady, despite the quantum scalpel embedded in her shoulder. "But we choose not to." "That is illogical. Pain serves no... Pain teaches us." Elena's hand moved to the scalpel, gripped it. "Every scar tells a story. Every ache reminds us we survived something that should have killed us." Keithar watched in horrified fascination as Elena extracted the blade herself, her pain centers fully active by choice. Blood temperature, 37 degrees. Consciousness, unwavering. Logic, completely absent. For the first time in his 340-year career, Dr. Keithar understood why humans conquered the galaxy. They had already conquered themselves. 47 species represented the Galactic Medical Authority in the crystalline amphitheater. Each civilization had transcended biological suffering millennia ago through quantum neural dampening, bioengineered pleasure cascades, or consciousness uploading. Pain was primitive, barbaric, extinct. Elena Vasquez stood before them, her primitive medical kit laughably inadequate against the Council's molecular reconstructors. Dr. Keithar observed from his suspension pod as Grand Medicus Vrilthon activated the neural probe. Standard procedure for evaluating inferior species. "Subject exhibits unusual cortical patterns," Vrilthon's mechanical voice echoed. Neural pathways deliberately maintain connection to nociceptors. Curious mutation. Keithar's respiratory chambers constricted. After witnessing Elena's impossible feats, performing surgery on herself, healing faster under stress, choosing consciousness over sedation, he understood what these council elders could not. This wasn't mutation, it was evolution. Honored medicus, Elena's voice carried warmth despite facing 47 accusatory optical arrays. You're reading it wrong. She pressed her palm against a jagged metal beam protruding from the examination platform. Crimson weld. 47 species recoiled at the voluntary self-harm. It's not a mutation, it's a choice. Elena's voice remained steady. Pain isn't our weakness. The amphitheater fell silent. It's our strength. Keithar realized the council was about to witness humanity's greatest paradox. Keithar's biomonitors screamed impossible readings. Elena Vasquez operated on the dying Vraxian ambassador, while her own neural pathways blazed at 9.2 on the pain index, enough to kill 3 Zaphirians. Yet her hands remained steady. Pain guides precision, Elena whispered. Not to the council watching through the observation deck, but to herself, to the memory of her sister, the surgery she couldn't perform, couldn't save. Not this time, never again. Your suppressors would make me clumsy, she said louder for the council's benefit, would make her dead. 17 species watched as the human medic chose agony over safety. Elena's biometrics painted crimson warnings across every screen, cortisol levels spiking to 847 ml, adrenaline flooding at concentrations that should trigger cardiac arrest. Instead, she smiled. Keithar watched Elena's pupils dilate as she felt every cut, every suture, every heartbeat of her patient through the connection of flesh and nerve. The Vraxian's vitals stabilized. Impossible. Pain was weakness. Every galactic civilization had proven this millennia ago. Ambassador Keithar will live. Elena set down her instruments with deliberate care, then finally accepted Keithar's neural blockers. She collapsed. Her nervous system released its death grip on consciousness only when the work was done. For the first time in his 847-year career, Dr. Keithar questioned everything. These humans didn't endure pain. They weaponized it into precision. Dr. Keithar stared at the readouts, scrolling across 17 different monitors. Elena Vasquez had just revolutionized galactic medicine, not through superior technology, but through accepting agony as teacher. Across the medical bay, 12 species representatives recalibrated their understanding of consciousness itself. The Altarian neural mapping showed Elena's pain centers firing at frequencies that should have induced catatonic shock. Instead, the human continued suturing Acrylian's compound fracture with microscopic precision. Pain guides my hands, Elena said, her voice carrying to every corner of the amphitheater. Every nerve ending speaks depth, pressure, temperature, life. She paused, meeting Keithar's gaze. Your suppressors silence the body's wisdom. Grand Medicus Vrilthon's mechanical voice cut through the silence. Proposal: trial integration of human sensory protocols in emergency medical scenarios. Murmurs rippled through the council. 3,000 years of doctrine challenged by one death-world medic. Keithar's crystalline fingers trembled as he processed the paradigm shift. For 3 millennia, Zaphirian medicine had eliminated suffering, yet here stood proof that evolution's cruelest gift might be its greatest blessing. Pain wasn't punishment. It was precision, information, growth, life speaking to consciousness in its most honest language. The revolution wouldn't be technological, it would be philosophical, one human teaching the galaxy to feel again. Dr. Keithar's neural pathways reconfigured themselves for the 847th time that cycle. For 93 standard years, he had perfected Zaphirian medicine, painless, precise, sterile. Now, Elena Vasquez sat across from him in the quiet observation room, her death world biology radiating impossible warmth at 37.22 degrees. "Teach me." The words escaped before Keithar's dampeners could suppress them. His translator sparked. It had no protocol for a Zaphirian requesting instruction from a lesser species. Yet this human had demonstrated something beyond his comprehension: voluntary pain as a diagnostic tool, conscious agony as healing acceleration. Elena's eyes studied him, not with superiority, but with understanding. "Pain isn't punishment, doctor. It's information." Keithar's medical scanner registered her elevated stress hormones, increased neural activity, accelerated cellular repair even now, hours after surgery. Where Zaphirians numbed and weakened, humans embraced and transcended. 4 centuries of medical training crumbled against her 28 years of human experience. "Your method saved 17 species yesterday," he admitted. "Mine would have failed. I would have numbed them, missed the subtle feedback, lost them all." Elena smiled, that impossible expression combining joy and sorrow. "Then we learn together. I'll teach you to listen to pain. You'll teach me your precision." She extended her hand, palm forward. "Deal?" Keithar's crystalline appendage met her flesh. Warm, alive, so different from his own perfected biology. For the first time in his sterile existence, he understood. Humans didn't conquer pain. They partnered with it. Within a single galactic cycle, the Zaphirian Medical Authority rewrote 3,000 years of protocols. Dr. Keithar, once dismissive of human primitive pain responses, now championed the integration of human sensory medicine across 17 star systems. His first publication, Pain as Diagnostic Partner: Lessons from Human Emergency Medicine, became mandatory reading at every medical academy. Elena Vasquez's simple act of choosing to feel, to carry others' suffering as her own, had shattered millennia of clinical detachment among the galaxy's healers. The Terran Emergency Response Corps became the most sought-after medical unit in known space, their volunteers teaching alien physicians that true healing required more than advanced technology. It demanded the courage to embrace pain alongside hope. What the galaxy had once mocked as humanity's greatest weakness, their refusal to numb themselves to suffering, was now recognized as their most extraordinary strength. Keithar stood in the training bay, watching Elena demonstrate tactical pain management to a class of newly graduated physicians. 23 species represented, all learning to feel again. A young Altarian student pressed her appendage against a diagnostic scanner, then flinched. The first time she'd felt discomfort in her entire life. "Good," Elena said gently. "Now tell me what that pain is teaching you." The student's translator crackled with wonder. "Location, pressure, temperature. I understand." Keithar's dampeners flickered, struggling to suppress something that felt dangerously close to pride. The truth would echo through medical academies for generations. In a universe of beings who had forgotten how to feel, humans had chosen to remember. And now, slowly, painfully, beautifully, the galaxy was learning to remember with them.